Good, I think we just found our new sound man.
That is training.
Yeah, that's the extent of your training. All right. From 1994 until 2004, there was a sitcom on TV that was extremely popular. It was called Friends. Don't know whether any of y'all watched that show or not, but it's about 6 friends who are, as the theme song says, there for one another. And I think it became as popular as it did and has maintained its staying power in all the reruns and the syndication that it has, because it focuses on how significant and beneficial true friendships can be. The show seemed to strike a nerve, especially with the younger folks, young adults that were watching it. Because most people, I think, want what the characters on that show portrayed as having, which was a circle of friends who were going to be there for them no matter what, even when the rain began to pour. So tonight, I want us to look at our relationships with our friends. Proverbs actually says quite a bit about friendships, about the kind of friend that we should look for and the kind of friend that we should also be. Proverbs teaches us that there's more to friendship than being acquainted with someone or socializing with someone. Proverbs offers an excellent and exalted view of friendship that goes beyond our surface level camaraderie that we have with some folks to a deeper level in which we share our hearts and lives with one another. Solomon said in Proverbs 18:24, and this is in the English Standard Version, it says, "A man of many companions comes to ruin, but there is a friend that sticks closer than a brother." Having mere companions isn't enough. To make it through life, we need close, heart-to-heart, inner circle friends. So tonight I want us to look at 2 aspects of friendship: how to choose a friend and then how to be a friend. Again, when I talk about friendship, I'm not referring to those that you're just acquainted with or those that you socialize with on occasion. I'm referring to those that you bring into the inner circle of your life, those that you share your heart with, those who know you and those that you know inside out. Proverbs tells us that we should be careful about the kind of person that we become friends with. Proverbs 12:26, the very first part of that verse, says, "The righteous should choose his friends carefully." Now let's say that you own your own company and you want to hire someone to be second in command to help you run the business. What kind of a person are you going to hire? Now remember, this is someone who will have access to your money, who's going to represent you, going to represent your company to the public, someone who will help you to make strategic decisions regarding the future of your business. So what kind of a person are you going to hire? Just anyone who walks in off the street and puts in an application? No, of course not. You're going to look for somebody with character, somebody with wisdom and discretion, has some ability and some experience. And when it comes to making friends, to choosing friends, it's like you're hiring someone to be your second or your right-hand man, so to speak. Or I suppose these days I need to say your right-hand person. Okay? And you're signing on as his or her right-hand person as well. This someone whose advice you're occasionally going to seek, who you'll turn to in times of trouble, who you'll share good times with, who you'll learn from, and someone who you're also going to be teaching. You should never approach the task of choosing friends lightly. You must, as Solomon recommended, exercise caution. This goes against what I was taught as I was growing up. I was told things like, to have a friend, you need to be a friend. And you should be a friend to the friendless. Y'all hear those when you were growing up? Okay. I don't know that those are necessarily good advice. Okay? Me personally. Because if a person doesn't have friends, there might be a reason for that. Okay? Maybe other people have tried to be their friend and have paid dearly because of it. Maybe this person is the kind of person who will talk about you when you're not around, who's going to break tools that you loan them. They're going to drain your emotional reserves with endless problems that they expect you to come in and solve. Maybe bringing this person into your life is nothing less than an invitation for misery. Now, I'm not saying this kind of person doesn't matter to God. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't try to reach out to this person and help them. Because we should. You should try to influence them to lead a better life, to live more for God, to develop some integrity. But you should be very careful about inviting this person into your inner circle. You're to be friendly with everyone. You need to show the love of Jesus to everyone. But we need to be selective in who we share our heart with. Choosing a friend in many ways is like choosing a mate. Therefore, in choosing a friend, you should try to choose a certain kind of person. And in being a friend, you should strive to be a certain kind of person as well. That's what I want us to look at. The kind of friend you want to have and the kind of friend you need to be. And there are three characteristics of a good friend that I think we can find here in the book of Proverbs. First of all, a friend hurts when you hurt. Solomon said in Proverbs 17:17, a friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for a difficult time. Think of the people that you call your closest friends. When you hurt, do they hurt? Or are they happy? Obviously, if it's the latter, they're probably not your friend. And then the question you need to ask yourself is, am I the kind of person that someone could turn to in times of trouble, knowing that my response will be one of love? I remember when I was in high school, one of my close friends in high school, one of these people that was in my inner circle in high school, he and I were talking one day, and he began to cry. And he told me that he had found out the night before that his parents were going to be getting a divorce. And it was a rather traumatic thing for him. And it shocked me because I knew his parents. I had spent time at his house. And they seemed like a very happy family, a very happy couple. And then I started thinking about my friend and what he was going to be going through, and I started weeping along with him. Because I had grown up in a split family. My mother and father had gotten divorced when I was still in diapers. So I grew up really not having a dad at all. And I knew some of the stuff that he was going to start going through because his parents were going to be divorced. Even though we were now in the 70s and divorce was a little more accepted, when I grew up in the 60s as a child growing up, divorce happened, but it wasn't near as common as it was in the 70s. But I knew that their family was going to experience, chances are, some financial problems because of this divorce. There was certainly the possibility that he might start feeling a little ostracized from people around him, from our friends that we were both friends with, and those that he was friends with, and maybe that I didn't know as much, just because they couldn't identify with what it was that he was going to be going through and the emotional turmoil that he was going to be experiencing. How precious it is, how rare it is to have someone stand by you in times of trouble. How wonderful it is to have somebody who hurts when you hurt. At times it can seem the only thing that matters is to have friends who care. There's an important verse in Job that emphasizes that. It's in Job 6, verse 14. And it says, "A despairing man should have the devotion of his friends, even though he forsakes the fear of the Almighty." Whoever your friends are, they're not going to be perfect. They're going to make mistakes. Sometimes they're going to make stupid mistakes. And at that time, more than at any other time in their life, they're going to need a loyal friend, the kind of friend who says, you know, even if you go off the deep end and you run from God, I'm going to hang in there with you until you come to your senses. When you're choosing friends, you need to ask yourself, does this person have the capacity for that kind of loyalty? And you need to ask yourself, am I willing to do this for my friends? If your friend gets in trouble, you don't have to endorse everything that they've done or admire everything about them, but you can be there with them so that they don't have to suffer alone. A friend hurts when you hurt. Secondly, a friend will say what needs to be said. What few social skills I have, I owe mostly to a different friend that I had in high school. He never hesitated to say to me what needed to be said. He would say things like, "Jeff, you're sounding like a know-it-all. Nobody wants to be around you." Or, "You know, Jeff, your jokes are funny the first time, but the fifth time, not so much." Or, "One word of advice here, Jeff. Right guard." Now, those may sound like mean things to say, but I knew this guy. And from the time that I had first met him, I knew that we were going to get along. And I knew that he was a friend, no matter what. Therefore, I knew that whatever he said to me wasn't intended to hurt me at all, but to help me. And just as an aside, I said some things back to him as well. We helped one another by saying those things, because we didn't say them to hurt one another. We said what we said to try to help the other person. A friend will say what needs to be said, even if it hurts a little bit. With a true friend, both of you know that the words are really not intended to hurt, but to help. Solomon said in Proverbs 27, verse 6, "The wounds of a friend are trustworthy, but the kisses of an enemy are excessive." That's an interesting verse, isn't it? The NIV says that last part of the verse this way: "But an enemy multiplies kisses." We've all seen TV shows or movies when the main character befriends a person who appears to want a friendship, and all of us are watching and thinking in our heads, don't become friends with that person, because we know things that that main character doesn't know. We know things about that person because we've seen how that person treated other people, or things that that person said to other people, and they're just going to ruin you. That's their whole goal. Many times we recognize what's happening in these shows because it's happened to us at some point in our lives as well. And Solomon's words are very true. The kisses of an enemy are excessive. That means that someone who isn't your friend will say whatever is easiest to say at the time. A true friend will be honest with you, to say whatever needs to be said, but they're going to say it in love. Now, I don't want to give the impression that a friend says only negative things, because that's not the case at all. A friend offers encouragement and support. A friend says things that build your confidence. A friend can be counted on to give worthwhile, uplifting advice. Proverbs 27:9 says, "Oil and incense bring joy to the heart, and the sweetness of a friend is better than self-counsel." So in choosing friends, you need to ask yourself, is this a person that I can turn to for counsel? Does this person have the capacity to say what needs to be said? And again, you need to ask yourself, am I willing to be that kind of a friend to someone? A friend that says what needs to be said out of a desire to help, not hurt. And thirdly, a friend will bring out the best in you. Solomon warns us to be cautious in choosing friends, because your friend's character rubs off on you. Proverbs 22, verses 24 and 25 says, "Don't make friends with an angry man, and don't be a companion of a hot-tempered man, or you will learn his ways and entangle yourself in a snare." The people you share your life with have the ability to influence you. So make sure that you share your life with people of good character. Now, many times we don't have that option, but a lot of times we do. I grew up in the church. Bad words were not a part of my vocabulary at all. They weren't anywhere around me. And then I went to work for the Wichita Park Department, where every person who I worked with used colorful language, I should say. And here I was, trying to be the light shining in the darkness. But I was around them a lot. 8 hours a day. I was around these people and the language that they used. And it shocked me, but it shocked them even more when one day one of these words came out of my mouth. Didn't intend it to happen. It just was there. Many of you men served in the military. I've known a lot of guys who served in the military. And when they got out, it was tough for them to start trying to control their language again, because they were around that so much. Y'all remember the actor Don Johnson from Miami Vice? Okay. When his career began taking off in the early 70s, he got caught up in the Hollywood lifestyle that there was, and spent a decade taking drugs, abusing alcohol, and just living it up. In 1983, he finally got his life straightened out, and he got sober. And he was asked once if he had any regrets. And he said, yes, I regret wasting lots of time with a bunch of jerks that I wish I hadn't spent 10 minutes with now, let alone 10 years. How many times have you heard the phrase, he got mixed up with the wrong crowd? It happens too many times. Like it or not, we tend to be chameleons when we're around people. We begin acting like they do. Back when I was with the park board, once again, there was an older gentleman. His name was John. No offense. You're nothing like him, believe me. John was an odd little man. He had very specific ways of doing things. They didn't want to fire John because they felt sorry for him. And so they gave him one little area. Actually, it was the library in downtown Wichita. That was all he had to take care of. And it was not a very big, let's just put it this way, the library, there wasn't any place outside to sit and read. It was an indoor library. There was a very small portion of grass. That's what he had to take care of, and the trees and bushes that were around the library. But John would all of us who worked down there, who worked with John, mimicked John and his way of talking. Certainly not around him, but we would do it. It was, and he would do that a lot before he'd say anything. I think we need it. He had a very gruff voice. And I didn't think about that at all, normally, until I went out to Pizza Hut with our church friends after church one night. And the waiter came and took our order and started to walk away. And then I thought, no, I want some of this. And I went, ah! And everybody kind of looked at me. You tend to, those people that you're around, you tend to pick up their habits, their speaking style. That's just a part of what we do as humans. Not that we look up to those folks, but we're just around them, and it happens. It's one of the reasons that we need to be so careful about who we let come into our inner circle. We need to be careful about who it is that we associate with, because sooner or later, we're going to start taking on some of their values. In the book of 1 Corinthians, Paul warns us. 1 Corinthians 15:33. He said, "Do not be misled. Bad company corrupts good character." Whoever you become close to, whoever you bring into your inner circle, will have an influence on your life. So you need to seek out those who can bring the best out in both of you. Proverbs 27:17 says, "Iron sharpens iron, and one man sharpens another." I'm not much of a sports guy, but you can tell that just by looking, can't you? But it's interesting that two of John Elway's best seasons were the last 2 years of his career. And two of Dan Marino's worst seasons were the last 2 years of his career. Both men were great athletes. In my opinion, two of the best in the NFL. I mean, they knew how to play. Both got new coaches towards the end of their careers. John Elway and his coach were best friends. Dan Marino and his new coach really didn't like one another very much. Elway finished his career with a bang. Marino finished his career kind of with a thud. And both men have admitted that their relationship with their coach is what made the difference. Neither of those men could choose their coach. But we can choose who our friends are. We need to choose friends that make us sharp. Choose friends with qualities that we admire. Qualities that we want to see in our own life. Their character will ultimately rub off on you. Proverbs 13:20 says, "The one who walks with the wise will become wise, but a companion of fools will suffer harm." So I hope tonight's message will inspire you in two ways. First, if you don't have close friends, if you don't have an inner circle, I hope you're going to begin to seek out some people to share your life with. People of wisdom, of character, and compassion. And I hope that you're selective in choosing your friends. And if you're involved in friendships that are dragging you down, I hope that you'll distance yourself from those people, at least until you're in a position of influencing them so that you can bring them to a higher level of living as a devoted follower of Christ. And secondly, I hope that this message will inspire you to examine the kind of friend that you are to others. More than likely, God has already put people in your life who need and deserve your friendship. But they need you to be the best kind of friend that there is. They need you to hurt when they hurt. They need you to say what needs to be said in a way that helps them to become better. And they need you to bring out the best in them. And if you become that kind of person, if you're willing to be that kind of a friend, it won't be long until you find yourself involved in friendships that will reward you for the rest of your life. There are people that I know back in Kansas. Let's face it, I don't see them very often. But there are guys there are a couple of them I can think of right off the top of my head. I could pick up my phone and text one of them right now and tell them anything, and they would be accepting of it. Guys that I grew up with. And even though it's been years since we've seen one another, I know that if we ever came face to face with one another again, our friendship would take up right where it left off. And some of them have had some life experiences that were very hard. They were rough. And during those times, they'd text me, "Can you pray for me? This is going on." I have folks like that. We all need people like that in our lives. So if you don't have that, I would imagine most of you all do. But if you don't, you need to get some. You need to find some. Next week, as we continue in Proverbs, I think we're going to take a look at getting advice and giving advice to folks. And Proverbs has a lot to say about that one too. All right? Okay. Take out your prayer sheet.